Hello besties, welcome back to Bookmas. I cannot believe that we are almost at the end of Bookmas. It's just absolutely crazy, blowing my mind. I'm so happy that you're here, and I've honestly had such a positive experience doing Bookmas so far this year. But as you saw in the title of this week's, this week, there have been many videos this week. Of today's video, I am doing the 2026 end of year book tag. And this is a video that I've done. This is either my third time or my fourth time filming this video, which is actually crazy. I cannot believe that I've been making book videos for as long as I have. And so at this point in the year, I have read 50 books, but I still have a bit of December to go. So we could get higher than that. We're just going to have to wait and see until the end of the year. And so I'm going to be answering a set of questions about all of the books that I have read this year to hopefully give you guys some good recommendations and just share some of my opinions on the books that I have read. And last thing that I wanted to mention is I'm not going to be diving into plot summaries because A, that's going to take a really long time, and B, I'm planning on doing a video where I talk about every single book that I read in 2025 in the new year. And so this is just vibes, recommendations, and getting through the questions as quickly as we can. So I think that's it for this introduction. Let's jump into the 2026 end of year book tag. The first question is Underdog Book of the Year. And I personally love this question because I feel like it gets at books that you really enjoyed, but you weren't necessarily expecting to enjoy. And so for this question, I have decided to go with Martyr by Kaveh Akbar. I feel like lately I have sort of laid it on thick with this book. I've been talking about it quite a bit, but it just is the perfect book to answer this question because this is a book that I was gifted. My boyfriend's mom gave this book to me after she read it, and it wasn't really a book on my radar. But then I did my big TBR challenge where I read every single book on my physical TBR until it got down to 0. And so I read this book and it was so good. I loved the characters in here. I loved the plot and how there was a little bit of a plot twist. Excellent book, excellent story, and definitely an underdog. I rated this for in the 4-star range, and it was just really good. So if you guys are looking for a fiction book that's going to pull at your heartstrings a little bit, I would recommend this one. Now, unfortunately, the next question is most disappointing book of the year. And I did have a few books that I really didn't like, but I feel like for disappointing, this is a question where it's a book that you thought you could like, or maybe it's a book you thought you'd really like, and then you just didn't end up enjoying it. And so the book that I have to talk about for this question is unfortunately The Bee Sting by Paul Murray. This is a book you guys know, the real ones know, that this has been sitting on my shelf for an unbelievably embarrassing amount of time. And I was really hoping that it was one of those books that I was putting off, that I wasn't reading, but when I finally picked it up, when that day came, I would be like, oh my gosh, I don't know why this book was sitting on my shelf for so long. It was so good. Unfortunately, I did not have that experience reading this. I appreciate it for what it was, and this is definitely a book that I will recommend to people. I rated this around a 3-star. I like the characters a lot. I like how thoroughly fleshed out they were, and honestly, a lot of things about this book were really good. Unfortunately, I was a little bit bored throughout. I didn't feel super connected to it, and I found the ending to be so unbelievably frustrating, and some people love the ending of this book, but I hated it. So if you read this book, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. This isn't a bad book. I was just disappointed because I was really hoping that I would be rewarded for picking up a really intimidating book, and I wasn't, but I did finish it. I did not DNF it, and for that, I'm really proud of myself. Question number 3 is a book that was overhyped, and I like this book, don't get me wrong, but the answer that I have for this question is One Dark Window by Rachel Gillig. I really did like this book. I thought it was good. It's a gothic, dark fantasy romantasy where you're following our main character who lives in this world covered in mist, and there's dangerous things that can happen to you when you get magic through magical playing cards. And it's really fun and it's really unique, but honestly, the amount of hype and the amount of things that I'd heard about this book made me think it was going to be like a 5-star. But it was definitely not as impressive as I thought, and a little bit slow to start and a little bit confusing to start, and it clicks eventually, but I just did not connect with this book as much as I thought that I was going to. But I will say the second book in this series, Two Twisted Crowns, was worlds better. And so I absolutely still think you should read One Dark Window so you can go read Two Twisted Crowns, because I thought the series ended very, very well. But yeah, I just didn't think that the hype around this book was quite worth it. And you guys can come at me for that if you want, but I didn't love it as much as I thought that I was going to. Up next, we have favorite book couple. And this is usually a question that's so difficult for me to answer. But as I was looking back on all of the books that I've read this year, I don't know if I had any romances that were 5 stars. I could be so wrong about this. I read a lot of romances this year and I just don't think they were like my favorites. And so of all of the romances and all of the book couples that I read, my favorite has to go to Win and Bo from Out on a Limb by Hannah Bonham Young. This romance was incredibly refreshing to me. I thought the writing was amazing. I thought Win and Bo, their characters were so fun and so fleshed out, and I felt so emotionally invested in the two of them as individual people and characters, but also their relationship. And when they started getting together for realsies, this is not a fake dating trope, it's an accidental pregnancy trope. And so they're kind of forced together to raise this kid. And when they kind of come together for real as a couple, not just co-parenting vibes, I loved it. I loved it. I loved it. I liked Bo, especially the love interest in here. He was just so good, to the point where I'm like, I don't think any man would ever actually do all of the things in here as selflessly as Bo does. But that's why we like men written by women. And I just loved this book, loved these characters. And so if you have heard about this, if you're thinking about it, if you're itching for a romance that's a little different from maybe a romance that you've read before, I would either recommend Hannah Bonham Young or, as an aside, Ashley Poston, if you're trying to refresh your romances this year. Loved this and loved them. Favorite main character. Guys, this is so hard. And remember, I'm trying to do a different book for every question. So there are some characters or books that maybe I would use for multiple questions, but I'm trying to keep it interesting so you guys can have as many book recommendations as possible. And so for this question, I don't know if this is going to be so obvious or such a surprise. I have no idea. I have to go with Daisy from Daisy Hates. I love this girl so much, and it's giving me heart pain not knowing when the next Daisy Hates book is coming out. Jessa, if you're watching, which you're absolutely not, help a girl out. I need to know what happens to Daisy and Christian and this universe and this world. I picked up the Magnolia Park series last year, not having any idea how I would feel about it, because in essence, this series follows a bunch of early to mid 20-year-olds living in London who are extremely rich. And so honestly, I liked Magnolia Parks, those books, but I love the Daisy Hates books. And I just find Daisy's character to be so complicated, so complex, so unique, and yet so relatable. She's not relatable at all. And yet the way that she feels things and the way that she processes things is so relatable. And so I love her. And so I'm going with Daisy. I would love to reread this book. No, don't put any crazy thoughts in my mind. I already have so many rereads that I'm planning on doing. I love Daisy. And that is the answer to that question. Then we have a book that surprised you, and I have to go with God of the Woods by Liz Moore for this question. I am in a book club with 10, 15 girls, and that has been the most positive experience on me as a reader in terms of the diversity of books that I'm picking up, because we all vote every single month on which book to read. So everyone sends a bunch of suggestions, and then the winner, whatever book had the most votes, we read. And so it ends up being that we read so many different genres. And this is 1,000% a book I would never have picked up ever, unless my book club forced me to read it. And this is a mystery. A lot of people think it's a thriller, but it is not. Do not go into this book for thrill. It is pure mystery vibes. I found the mystery to be very complex, and there were a lot of characters and a lot of things to keep track of. There were multiple POVs, multiple timelines, and just overall so many different things to keep track of. And I love it when authors are trying to keep my brain busy, they're trying to make me work, they're trying to help me figure things out. And I did not guess the ending. I wasn't obsessed with the ending, but overall really enjoyed this book and was definitely surprised. I would not have picked this book up on my own if it wasn't for the girls in my book club voting for it. New favorite author you discovered in 2025. Okay, guys, so I realized I read a lot of authors I already know in 2025. So I'm thinking that's going to be a goal for 2026 is expand a little bit, because as I was looking through the literally 50 books that I've read this year, so many of them were authors that I'm already obsessed with. However, I did read one book at the end of this year, and I am now obsessed with not only the book, but also the author, and that is The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. I think when I heard Kristen Hanna in the past, I think of like dense, thick, historical fiction. And I've always liked historical fiction. That's never been an issue for me. History was like my favorite subject growing up. I love it. So that wasn't the problem. It was just like the reputation around Kristen Hanna's books. I'm like, oh, they're hard to understand. They make everybody cry. They're really intense. And so I was like, I don't want to pick that up. Like, that doesn't sound very good. But then I did a reading vlog where I read sad books. And again, book club girls voted for this. So there was like 2 reasons that I wanted to pick this book up. And now I love Kristen Hanna. Her writing was so easy to comprehend, yet also so impactful. Like, I feel like I felt everything so deeply, and it wasn't hard to like understand or communicate those ideas. And everything about this book felt so well researched. This is a World War II historical fiction novel, if that gives you any hint as to what I went through when I read this. But it was fantastic, and I will hopefully definitely be picking up more books by Kristen Hanna in the future. Question number 8 is happiest read of the year. And so this isn't like my favorite book of the year, but I'm just thinking what book was making me smile, giggle, kick my feet. And I'm going to have to go with The Paradise Problem by Christina Lauren. I am a huge Christina Lauren fan. I love so many of their books. And so when I heard that The Paradise Problem was coming out last year, and then on top of that, I was hearing nothing but incredible reviews, because I feel like some of their more recent books have gotten very mixed reviews. I was like, okay, I need to pick this book up during the summertime, and that's exactly what I did. And this rom-com was so funny, so good. It wasn't, again, like a perfect book, but I was smiling, I was laughing, I was giddy, and it's just so fun. It's very extravagant. You have fake dating on a private island where there's a really extravagant wedding happening. It's very, again, tropical and summery, and it also starts out at UCLA, which is where I went to school. So I was really biased and connected to that just right from the beginning. And so there were just so many things that I loved about this book, and I had such a great time. And I feel like when I think about this book, I just think about how it made me happy. And so I think it's the perfect answer to that question. Then we have most frustrating book of the year. And again, there were a few different directions that I could have gone with this one, but I decided that One True Loves by Taylor Jenkins Reid was my most frustrating book of the year. And there's 2 reasons for that. One, all of TJR's most recent releases I've given 5 stars. I want to say like 5 or 6 books of hers are 5 stars for me. And I am so picky about what books to give 5 stars. So it's just crazy that she, has that spot in my mind. But this book is in her backlist, and it's about a woman who her husband really tragically passes away, and years later she like falls in love again, and she's about to get remarried when it turns out that her first husband actually had survived this accident, and he like finds his way back to her. And so she has to choose which man is like her true love, basically like her current fiance or her ex-husband who she thought died. And I hate love triangles, first of all, which is basically what this was, but it was so heartbreaking and devastating. Like, I was just so frustrated with the way that it was handled, and also just the situation itself was a recipe for disaster. Like, I didn't want to pick up this book because of the synopsis, but I did because of the author, I just didn't like how this was handled. I didn't like the characters. I didn't like the choices that they made, especially the main character. I hated her, and I felt bad for her at the same time. So it's like not a good combo. So yeah, that one was really frustrating. I could talk about this for a long time, but I'm not going to. I didn't like it, but I love all of TJR's other books that I've read. Question 10 is longest book you've read this year. And gosh, did I read a freaking huge book this year. You guys already know what book that is. I read Kingdom of Ash this year by Sarah J. Maas. This book is 984 pages long, and it is officially the longest book that I have ever read in my entire life. I feel so accomplished also. Like, I used to look at this book on the shelf and be afraid of it, but now I can say that I've read it and I loved it, and there's nothing to be afraid of, because if you've made it to this point in the series, you're just dying to know what happens next. I loved this book. I know the question isn't like about the quality of this book. Loved this. This is one of my favorite books of the year. So incredible. And maybe it was so good because of how long it is. I really couldn't tell you. This is fantastic. And then of course, shortest book of the year was The Situationship by Abby Jimenez. This, I thought it was like a book, but this is like a novella. I think it's like 37, 40 pages long. It's like, can you even consider that a book? I don't think so. To be fair, when I like chose this book in a TBR wheel video, I thought it was like a full length novella, not like a short story basically. But I do have this logged in Goodreads because I just didn't know. And so that has to be the shortest book that I read. It's like a romance short story based on the Part of Your World trilogy. So if you've read those 3 books, I do recommend going and picking up The Situationship. It's really cute, really sweet, and it was good. Number 12 is favorite book covers. And the first one is God of the Woods. Again, I just think this book cover is so pretty. And so I just wanted to bring it up again because you have like the wooded scene, but there's also like a drip of pink paint that falls down on the cover. And that's like relevant if you've read the book. And I just think it's a really eye-catching cover. And then the other one that I don't know if other people feel this way, but like I feel this way, is Magnolia Park's Into the Dark, but specifically this edition. I will say I am partial to the original indie published covers. I do have those. You would have seen my Daisy Hates copy. I thrifted 2 copies from the Magnolia Park series in this edition, but I haven't been able to find the rest. And I think these are just the most beautiful thing. But if we're talking new books, I am also obsessed with the Into the Dark cover. I just think the gold metallic is absolutely gorgeous and stunning. I love that it also has a gold spine. You can see I totally cracked and destroyed this when I read it. And I just think the colors are so satisfying and so beautiful on here. And I don't have any other books that are like kind of gold metallic like this. I just think this is so pretty. Sorry if that's controversial. I know a lot of people don't like the shoes, but like, I don't care. I think this is really pretty. Number 13 is Unpopular Book That You've Loved. And that has to be Ruthless Vows by Rebecca Ross. And I interpreted this as unpopular with ratings. Like I heard a lot of people were very, very disappointed with this book after reading Divine Rivals, the first book in this series. And so I didn't read it for like a year because I was like, oh my gosh, everybody hated it. I'm not going to pick this up. And then what did I go and do? I rated it 5 stars. I loved this book. I loved this entire YA romantasy duology. I thought it was fantastic. And I wish I didn't push this book off for as long as I did, because as much as I loved it, I think I would have appreciated it even more if I read it right after I finished Divine Rivals and like all the bad reviews didn't scare me off. Then 14 is favorite reread. And guys, I have almost reread the entire Percy Jackson series this year. I have one more book left to go. I just have The Last Olympian, which is book 5. And so I couldn't pick just one. I had to just talk about the entire series. And this was a goal that I set at the beginning of this year. I wanted to reread one of my favorite childhood series, and the Percy Jackson series just felt right. So hopefully I can squeeze in The Last Olympian by the end of the year. Honestly, it's not looking good. Like if we're being so honest and transparent right now, I don't know if I'm going to quite finish that last one, but rereading all of these books has been the most joyful experience. I've honestly listened to a lot of them over audio, and that's been really, really fun. But yeah, these are so good. I don't think, if you haven't read them before, I don't honestly recommend reading them as an adult because they do feel really YA. But if you have read these, it's just like pure joy and nostalgia. So I'm loving rereading these. And yeah, I had to go with the entire series. So those were all of the books. And then we just have 2 more like book related questions. And so number 15 is reading goal reflection and 2026 reading goal. In 2025, my goal was to read 25 books. And I always like set that number lower than the number of books I think I'm going to read, because I don't like to put that kind of pressure on myself. I have a hard time with that. And like, what if I want to read a really long book? Like this year, I read a lot of the Throne of Glass series. Those are all really thick. The Bee Sting, Magnolia Parks. Like I read a lot of thick books this year. And if I put like a high number as my reading goal, I think it would have really stressed me out. So 25, I did do that. I'm very happy with that. And then my 2026 reading goal is going to be 26 books, which again feels very reasonable for me to do. This is going to become a problem when it's like 2050, you know, and I have to do like 50 books. And last question is, what are you prioritizing in 2026? And I wrote down a few answers for this one, but at a glance, I want to finish more series. I did a really good job of that in 2025. Like I wrapped up so many series, particularly like big ones. Again, Throne of Glass, Magnolia Parks, Ruthless or Divine Rivals. There were so many. I can't remember them now, but I did a really good job. So I'd like to continue that momentum into 2026. And then I would also love to listen to more audiobooks. I am like trying to be an audiobook girl. And I think I've just learned that some books are not good on audio and other books are. So if you're not enjoying an audiobook, stop listening to that one and pick a new one because you could love another audiobook. And yeah, those are kind of my big goals. Okay, besties, that was my 2026 end of year book tag. If you guys made it all the way to this point in the video, comment down below the little Santa Claus emoji so I know who made it all the way here. I think that's it from me. I hope you guys are having a great day and a great month, and I will see you in 2 days for the next Bookmas video. I love you guys. Bye.